the nations in every continent across the earth. We fight and argue about religion, whose is real and which one really works. Catholics and Muslims, Jews and Hindus have been fighting for all history. But there is one thing that all the people in every culture can at least agree. God wants you to wear a hat. God wants you to wear a hat. God wants you to wear a hat. If you don't want to piss off God, remember that. You could be picking weird like the one worn by the Pope, or a teeny tiny coaster like the Jewish folk. Amish men think that big rooms are neat, or you could even just wrap your head with a sheet. Just go and wear a giant fuzzy hockey puck, or one that's really stupid like you're totally nuts. Your hat could even go from your head to your toes and make you look like a ninja's ghost. So one common rule everyone must abide, so make sure you put on something when you head outside, cause God's looking down from heaven and we've already said that he doesn't want to have to see your gross naked head. You wear your hat, you wear your hat, you wear your hat. Why aren't you wearing a hat? You wear your hat, you wear your hat. You ain't a real religion if you ain't got a hat. You wear your hat, you wear your hat. How dare you be outside without a hat? Lightning, 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 lightning. You don't want to piss off God, remember that. God wants you to wear a hat. God wants you to wear a hat. God wants you to wear a hat. If you don't want to piss off God, remember that.
Sound check before. Always do a sound check before you start your stream. USB, PNP audio device. Always do a sound check before you start your stream. Yes, and remember to turn the volume up to match. I'm sorry, this might maybe a little bit more gain here. Yeah, I'm sorry, my last stream was a little bit quiet, on the quiet side, except for all the music videos. We might have some more music videos here before the day is over. So, welcome to Sunkworks, part 27. If you were with us in episode 26, we drew this page up where we kind of laid out the axis for cluster creation activities and talked about our architecture change based on a licensing concern. We needed to remove one of the solutions that we had in place, so we haven't settled on adding another one yet. We haven't figured out exactly if the stack itself is still stable with that one piece removed, or if we're going to need to change a few more things yet, perhaps. There might be yet more to change. So, from that, let's take a look at the stream notes here, so we know what we're supposed to talk about today. So this says Emergency Roadmap Part 2, Cluster API. Here, and I'm going to quick mute this before we're listening to both of us. All right. So it says here, last week we updated the roadmap, and then afterwards I crossed out a few things. So if we look at what does that mean concretely in execution terms, go to the Howard Space cluster, and we run hogs. And this is not going to work because, well, it will almost work. Here we have to grant our access, but we don't have a metrics API because this is not the parent cluster. So let's go up to the top level parent cluster. Remember, we're using vcluster here. And let's see what that hogs command is here. Here. We're using kubectl top pods. I don't think we need that use protocol buffers anymore. I think that was a relic from version upgrade gone by. I think that's the default now. And we're sorting by the fourth column, which is the memory usage. So what you see here is we've got back at the top of the charts, again, the API servers, Kubernetes API servers, which are using more resources than anything else on the cluster. Of course, that's not great, but that is the state of things. Okay, so Why are we looking at Omni? Why are we looking at Talos Linux? Well, if you know about my history of presenting, I haven't finished the roadmap here yet. I have a couple things to unpack here. I would love to finish this page for myself here. I'm borrowing this from a friend. I'm sorry, I just assumed this person didn't mind me calling them a friend. I am not. I'm not saying I'm not your friend, Justin, but you don't know me. Sorry, I'm still new to the world of public personas. So I thought this was a really neat page here. You've seen me rail about percents before, and I think we've even looked at, where did it go here? Where is this thing here? Commits to page. So this is not my original creation, but this is my account here, and we can see some things that I've committed to do that are from more or less time ago and when they're due. And I said I thought this was not a very good completion percentage, but for public CFP submissions, I bet if you looked at my accept rate, it's probably right around there. Maybe even a little lower. I'm not sure if you count all the RailsConf talks I've submitted that never got me anywhere. I'm not saying I'm not going to try again. I think that's the trick here, is to be persistent. If you believe you have a topic that's worth presenting, then keep pitching it. I think. I don't know. Maybe at some point you want to give up. But I wanted to highlight this because I thought this was a really nice template, functionality aside. I thought this was just really nice design from a looking at things perspective, and it is open source, so you can go and enjoy it yourself if you'd like to try. So I'm off on a side tangent already. We were talking about cluster creation and goals and how things got in the way. And let's see. So then we showed that Weave GitOps Enterprise is not installed anymore. But what you can't really see if you don't have the full picture is that there isn't really much impact on, outside of the cluster creation workflow, which is severely impacted. There isn't really much impact on the usability of the cluster or the organizational structure, right? Because we built the thing to have a nested structure, and it still has the nested structure without the UI, or without the management around cluster creation. The only thing that's really different is if you want to create a new cluster, you have to go in there and copy paste some manifests from an existing cluster, or God forbid, write your own. Did we see the VS Code tool for writing your own manifests? Can we try it? I really want to try some things on the stream here. I don't know if this is going to work, and that's the theme today more than other days. I think I could have gone ahead and tried some things ahead of the stream to make this a bit more predictable, but I don't know what's going to work because I haven't done any of that. So I did upgrade some stuff here. Let's see, are we pinned to the old version, or are we on the new version here? I want to make sure I got the upgrades. It looks like I am not on the right version here. 1 second. GitOps tools for Flux. Alright, 0.27.0. So this is the old version, or the reverted version, I guess. This is the latest version. That's the correct version. Templates here, I wasn't expecting to see. I'm not sure this is working. Let's try again. Alright, so we've got a couple of problems here. We've talked at length before about the reason why this cluster is on Kubernetes 1.23. it's because of Docker. And we've talked a bit about why I can't just upgrade and forsake Docker and forget all about that Docker stuff because we have local network that depends on this Pi hole here. So this is one of the machines, and it's the one that runs Docker. And we also want to keep our Docker host around because of Team Heffy or Deus Workflow, which still has a Docker dependency. So we may go and fix that someday, but that's far future tense, and it's another completely separate issue from cluster creation. We are trying to tackle one problem at a time here. So let's get cluster creation really truly solved before we move on. So I did hear about this tool from our good friend Justin, who, this is not really green, but I guess it's, in this light, it's the same as the green behind me. This is the wrong time of day to stream, unless I get some drapes, I guess. Sorry about that. Hopefully it's not too distracting. So this is a really neat project. Justin built his home lab out of an old Mac cube. So that's pretty neat. And I haven't tried this yet. This is one of the things I haven't tried yet. So I do want to shout out to One Talk. I don't have the ability to do this thing where... sorry, let me switch here so this might look a little better. There we go. This is still not right, man. Are you serious? Hold on a minute. I'm just sitting further to the left than I was before, I think. And that's the wrong direction, too. Okay, well. What I'm trying to say is I don't have anyone to edit this video, so that I can't do the neat trick I want to do here, but... complete DR of stateful workloads. Yeah, so I did this talk one time at a GitOpsCon, and it was all about stateful workloads and GitOps, and how can you have those two things together. And I kind of, if you know me, I like to wallow in problems sometimes a bit longer than might be profitable, but so what I do, on my cluster at least, is I have mapped a bunch of persistent volumes in the manner described on that talk. There's a nice talk here about how to set up your persistent volumes with GitOps. But the short version is when you go in and create your... That's really interesting. There's these delete available. I don't know what that is. May have created some persistent volumes that were meant to be temporary and then deleted them. Or maybe those are from Weave GitOps. I'm not sure. There's something that left behind a residue of persistent data. And that's really the direction that I think of the problem from first, because that residue, if you're on a cloud host, is cost. But if you're on your own metal, it's barely a nuisance. So what this doesn't really show us, and maybe if we do, there's a wide version here that's going to tell us something more. No. How about for the persistent volume claims? Those are per namespace. Yeah, so what I really want to see is which of my persistent volumes are on which host. So we actually have 3 physical nodes. And what I'm not going to commit to do today, because I do like my cluster intact the way it is for the most part, and I have some databases that I might be sorry if they were just spontaneously nuked. What I'm not going to commit to do today is to install Omni on all of my nodes. But what I might do, because we can narrow it down, at least with 3 nodes, we know that if we take this node down, most of the persistent volumes are going to go offline, because I've been pretty studiously trying to centralize them there. And that's the compromise that I make in this talk that I mentioned. It's the compromise. It's to say, well, we don't really have the wherewithal to build a full distributed storage system for our cluster, and we're not on a real cloud provider where we would just get access to one for nominal cost. So what we'll do instead is use local volumes and just connect them to a particular node, and then we'll pin that workload to that node somehow. There's an easy way in Kubernetes that doesn't really require you to manually pin a node, but so how does this work? Let's see if we can find one. And I'm not going to use the databases as the example because the databases are almost all, I think, all managed by KubeDB, which is another not open source solution that I have only occasionally regretted having a major disaster because of using a licensed product that depends on some company. The fellow very graciously, I'm talking about Tamal, the owner, developer of KubeDB, the fellow very graciously granted me a license to use the tool for my open source support efforts for Team Heffy. And I took the license with me to a KubeCon, and one day things started going sideways. And it just happened to be a few days before I had to give this talk. So it was talk, the DR here stands for disaster recovery, and it was a real disaster, this talk. I get apprehension even thinking about watching it from end to end because the disaster didn't end there. It went through all the slides, and it was just a bad talk. I wish I had planned better and practiced more, but that's really neither here nor there. So we want to do this experiment without a bunch of stuff going down permanently and not coming back. So we do want to identify any persistent volumes that are on whichever node we're going to nuke to try this experiment out. I think I haven't read the manual at all, so I could be wrong about any part of this, but I think that we can set up one Talos node and probably remove the master taint from it and get a brand new Kubernetes cluster that starts from that node, and then slowly onboard the other nodes as we migrate persistent volumes. So we will have to figure out, are we going to invest in a better solution for persistent volumes now that we have a more stateless system? So like it kind of made sense before. These are Debian nodes, right? This is my master cluster node here. Excuse me one second. So this node, this is the control plane for the whole cluster, and there's only one control plane node here. And I think it's going to be easy to migrate everything to Talos, but there are going to be some hard decisions we're going to have to make. Like, how do we, well, for one, how do we support Docker? I'm going to punt on that one. If we need Docker, we'll do it in a real whole virtual cluster that will run underneath this cluster. I'm not sure, using what's maybe KubeVirt or something. So say we punted on Docker, we're not interested in Docker anymore. We still have to solve the storage problem. How do we get storage that is not localized on a node? Because ultimately what we do want is for us to be able to unplug any of these nodes and to see the system just recover. It doesn't matter if that node that we unplugged was running a persistent workload, it shouldn't depend on the local storage. That's how we've built systems for generations. I feel like I've been in this game for a little while, but somehow it seems like when we moved to the cloud, we lost a lot of essential skills that we had previously depended upon. Now we're on the cloud, so we don't know how to do that stuff anymore. It seems like we're making a lot of mistakes on the way on this migration to the cloud. Uh, anyway, so I was going to try to see, is this going to be a viable replacement for Cappy for us? So for one other thing I want to address here is, when I say replacement for Cappy, I am talking about the whole of Cappy. I'm like the ecosystem and everything. And so I am a little apprehensive about the idea of replacing the whole of the Cappy ecosystem with one single solution from anyone. And I am trying to call out a few people here specifically with some bad behavior that I don't want to name too specifically, because I'm sensitive to all types of business concerns, but I want to make it clear. I understand that when people come to open source and they build on open source, they're doing it in large part not because they're trying to get something for free. No, because they want to avoid a dependency on some other business. So when some business goes out of business, you, the responsible person for your technology stack, don't look like a big banana head for having chosen some company to depend on, who you can no longer depend on. That's how I feel sometimes when I make a bad decision like that. I just feel like a big banana head, and I don't like feeling like a banana head. So I tend to avoid depending on a company. But like, I can't just depend on Debian Linux because, well, I've done it for many years. I can't really say why. I can't just go on depending on Debian Linux. But I think that I should depend on a business somehow. I think I should find a way to make a profit myself. So if I depend on no businesses, maybe this is circular. I'm not really sure that's a good argument to add a dependency. Is it? We need someone to get paid. I don't. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I don't really think anyone is a bad actor, but sometimes it does seem like the solutions that you get are really custom tailored to make you depend on someone. And I'm not saying that Cappy has this problem or that it is a problem, but I do think that the nature of Cappy is a bit confusing from a open source perspective. And I don't know if that translates to the further downstream solutions. Just like in a nutshell, what do I envision the relationship between Cappy and OCM here, Open Cluster Management? I see Cappy as exposing a spec which is not rigorously, strictly Kubernetes, because it may contain resources that exist outside of Kubernetes. It almost certainly contains resources, right? Because you're creating physical nodes to deploy Kubernetes onto. And that abstraction is bound to leak some implementation details out from your provider. But the nature of Cappy is that you can choose from different providers. So you aren't locked into one provider so long as there are multiple viable providers for you to choose from. So you leave this to your platform team to find you the options and to present you with a good palette of choices, right? Maybe in the beginning you use Kind, and then your platform team comes along and says, we don't want to give you all 32 gigabyte laptops. It's too expensive. We have this whole bare metal cluster for you to work on. We've been studiously building a self-service platform for you to acquire dev clusters when you need them. So don't try to jam the whole thing onto your laptop. It's bigger than a breadbox. Okay? So this is the approach that I like Cappy from, is that I can give you multiple options. But where it breaks down a little bit is when you have to go and let's see if I can do what I'm suggesting here. And it looks like my business is frozen again. I don't know why it does this, but I don't think we need the extension today. I'm just going to uninstall it. Sorry, friends. Because it's not the extension that we're going to show off today. We're going to show off something that we saw in a YouTube short. I think that I can do this. Right? Alright, so I need to create a new... I don't want this project at all. Here. No, close that. New window. Right? Get rid of that one. And we're going to open a folder. Here, we're going to call it New Fleet Infra, because I'm going to have to archive some repositories soon, and one of them is Fleet Infra. So this is some of the structure that we got from Weave GitOps. Don't tell anyone. No. No. So we're going to pretend that there is no chicken and there is no egg. Today we are going to write a definition for cluster. And I think the way that you do this is by writing kind here, and then you say, what do I want here? I want, I'm going to pretend that we can make a V cluster R I don't know if that's right, but I'm going to put that there. Let's see. Can we get a real cluster here so we can see? Alright, so this is the real cluster that we wanted, and this is the other cluster. I'm not sure where that API version came from. Let's see. But it doesn't look like we did get the right information here, did we? That's what I wanted to see. Okay. Great. What just happened here? Oh no. There's a trick. He did it in... I'm sure. That ain't how you do it. Let's see if we can find the YouTube short, huh? So how am I not able to do this here? Kubernetes, maybe I just missed the opportunity. I'm pretty sure. No, it just doesn't know about that. So is it not downloading all the schemas? Because I was pretty sure. Yeah, we've got a schema here.
Kubernetes is that you tend to search for Kubernetes YAML files whenever you want to deploy a test pod, deployment, or any other Kubernetes resource. It is a repeated process, right? In this video, I will show you easy methods to create Kubernetes YAML manifest quickly for testing and deploying applications on Kubernetes. You can also use one of the methods if you're appearing for Kubernetes certification exams. The first method is Kubernetes YAML auto-generation using Kubernetes VS Code extension. Go to VS Code extensions, search for Kubernetes, and you will find the Kubernetes extension by Microsoft. Install the plugin and you are good to go. Now go ahead and create a YAML file. Then all you have to do is start typing the object name and it will automatically populate the options for you. Then based on your selection, it will auto-generate the basic YAML structure. You can create pod, deployment, stateful set, jobs, secrets, config maps, etc. Once you have the YAML, you can use the VS Code terminal to create the object. This extension has more good functionalities. Do check out the extension documentation to learn more. The next method is using kubectl imperative commands with dry run flag. When you use the dry run flag, kubectl doesn't call the API server and ensures that the object is not getting created in the cluster. This is particularly very useful if you're appearing for Kubernetes certifications like CKA, CKAD, or CKS. To make things faster, you can set up an alias for kubectl in bash rc so that you just have to use k instead of the whole kubectl. Now let's look at an example of creating a pod YAML using dry run. If you look at the command, I have added a pod name as my pod, nginx latest image, a label, and finally used dry run equal to client flag so that it won't get created in the cluster. Then we have -o YAML to have the dry run output in YAML format. Then I'm writing the output to mypod.yaml file. If I check mypod.yaml file, I can see the whole pod spec. Now I can deploy it using the kubectl command. Let's look at another example of creating a deployment YAML using dry run. If you look at the command, I am creating a deployment named mydeployment with nginx latest image with the dry run flag and writing the output to mydeployment.yaml. If you look at the output file, I have a basic deployment YAML ready and I can deploy it directly using kubectl. In the same way, you can create service YAML, job, and cron job YAMLs. Check out the documentation link I have given in the description for all the command references. Thank you for watching the video and I'll see you in the next video.
So this is a good video, but unfortunately I realized too late that this is not going to do anything that I thought it was going to do. What you might have just observed is here I'm trying to type a custom resource name. Like if I type deployment, this works. This is exactly what he just demonstrated. If I type secret, right, I can definitely get a secret definition. No problem. But if I type git repository or customization, any of the other resource names that are installed on my cluster as CRDs, well, it does not do anything useful. And I assumed that it would for some reason. I thought that would be really nice. But I don't know. I also don't know how they could do that reasonably, because you get optional fields and things that you probably don't want to be in the template. I mean, you get a lot of, I don't know, maybe it would be easier than I thought. Maybe there is an extension that does this. Pop that in the comments if you know the answer. Lazy web. All right, so but back to the question at hand. We do want to know, are we using any persistent volumes on that one node? Can we just take a backup of them and then wipe that one node out and replace it? Can we do that? in the space of like 40 minutes for a show. We're almost up to 40 minutes now. I don't think we're going to get it done today, but we might see when we come back for the next episode that I've already done this offline. So hopefully we're all enjoying ourselves today as much as I am. I am running a little bit out of steam today already. It is getting close to 40 minutes. So I think we should think about winding down. Let's see. So let's edit this page to add our new idea here. So was there a way with Omni? Let's see. Is it Talos cluster API? I want to see if there is like a cluster API for Talos, and it does look like there totally is one. So we don't have to abandon our cluster API idea necessarily, and it does look like this is maintained, so that's good. That is very good. Yeah. How does it work? Let's see. Bootstrap provider, control plane provider, infrastructure provider. This looks like a standard CAPI. Yeah, so I'm trying to differentiate here between standard CAPI offerings and non-CAPI or non-standard things shaped like CAPI. So like, for example, I'm going to call out vcluster.pro is an example of a not CAPI that might have the shape of CAPI, or, you know, like Talos Omni. Right, Omni is a SaaS that delivers some kind of, I don't know how it works. I haven't tried it yet. So vCluster, Omni, or let's also look at, I want to look at Cosmotron. Yeah, who's that? Cosmotron. Right, and I'm just calling this out because on the front page it does say it is not, it has now evolved into full cluster API. Alright, so up until the last time I looked at this, it said I'm not really a cluster API provider, and I was too absorbed in something else to go and look and see what did that mean. But so I guess this is actually a CAPI provider now. That's cool. But I'm calling these out because if you know about Weave GitOps Enterprise and what it does, it really is agnostic to what you're using for a CAPI provider. As long as it's shaped like a CAPI provider, I'm pretty sure, right, if it implements 2 out of the 3, here we've got cluster and vCluster, so there's the infrastructure, and there, what do we say we've got in, right, control plane, bootstrap, and infrastructure. So this one I think handles control plane and infrastructure, and then bootstrap I think is another thing. GitOps cluster doesn't do bootstrap. Maybe we misinterpreted the whole idea of CAPI. I don't really know. But I do want to figure out if CAPI should still be part of our solution set or if we can write it out completely. Not CAPI? I am going to write Cosmotron in here even though I guess it does count as CAPI now. A few weeks ago, I'm sure it said it wasn't CAPI. Okay. Cool. Alright, so we are out of time, but thank you for sticking with me throughout the 27 episode binge of, I'm sure nobody's watched all these things. No one's ever going to go back and watch all of these. Some future date. I'm going to eat my words. I don't know. I'm still on the hunt for a job. If anybody wants to talk to me about doing something that you know that I would like to do based on actually haven't watched any of these things. It's February 1st, 2024, and I am still on the hunt for a job. So, talk to me. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, rotate those keys. Peace, Internet.